being a true visionary, can you see something so vividly, so clearly that everybody else around you can see it as well? If they can, now you're at a point where you can, I love to say this and people laugh, give direction, not directions. You paint this picture so clearly that they see it, feel it, taste it, hear it, and you can just back away. The micromanagement is not necessary. What you'll find is that people really flourish in an environment like that.
Kris, so one of the things that I've taken away from your work and just the way that you handle yourself, Instagram channel, just looking through all your stuff, you're very authentic, dude, very transparent, dude, right? And you've had to come through business failures. Like you said, this is your 9th business, like, you know, ups and downs and all that shit. And I find for a lot of people, especially people that kind of reach out on the side after a guest, have like these side questions, a lot of this shit comes back to like ego, status, like I'm scared to fail because what will this person think? Or if I fail here, then I'll never get money for my next business. Or how did you, working through the various ups and downs, like stay yourself, like not get caught in, I got Charlie Kirk signing my bats and athletes and, you know, all these famous celebrities, you know, and you're getting all this attention. How do you kind of stay who you are, stay grounded in what makes you successful when you're going through all this shit?
I mean, it's two parts, right? Number one, you got to know who you are, right? And that comes down to just kind of reflection and being honest with yourself. I know who I am and I know who I'm not. You know, I know what the shit I'll put up with and I know what I won't put up with, right? I think like understanding the makeup of you is important. And then really understanding that who you are and what you do are two different things, you know, because a lot of time those lines get blurred. Lastly, and probably most importantly, like, you know, I have a whole talk I do about currency, you know, and the different types of currency, and not just dollars, right, but like real currency, time, experiential living, relationship capital, things like this. I think understanding what your core currencies are is super important, because like if I'll run into, like you said, you know, the hardships in business, but I'll be gaining a lot. Like this summer, I was completely useless from the business standpoint, but I partied with my kids all summer. We went to Chicago. We went to the Bahamas. We went to Michigan. We went bowling like 40 times, dude. Right? Literally. And it's just like this summer, I collected a currency that is really finite. You know, not the dollar bill. So I think when you realize you can accrue different currencies simultaneously, you don't get so, I'm not winning or losing only, right? Like, because I didn't make $1 or $10 or $1 million. You know, I think that mentality saves my ass a lot.
How does someone determine which currencies are important to them and which aren't?
Reflection. Asking themselves, right? You got to just, you know, what's important to you? You know, if your parent has a month left and you knew that now, how important would each day be? Right? It's just reflection, man. Like, and I got kind of sick when my daughter was born. She was about 6 months old, and could have not been here. You know, I got sick enough where I could have had a different, you know, that alternate timeline you're talking about. I don't even know what this timeline would look like. You know, everybody I've impacted ever since 2015, right? So it's a time, experiential living. Can I play with my friends? Am I having fun? You know, these are the questions, and that's why I got the golf company, the cigar line, the bat mug company. I still do consulting, but that's because I get to chat with cool people, you know, on cool projects and shit. Like, so, like, yeah, for me, that's kind of how I measure things anymore. And that's what I tell other people to do too. If like, oh, if you get some advice to a young entrepreneur, what'd you say? I'm like, that. Figure it out sooner than later, because you could be running real hard. You don't know if you're going in the right direction. That doesn't do you much good.
I love this idea of understanding what currencies are important to you.
Yeah.
And this to me seems like a really core tenet of being able to persevere, because when you haven't, I sold my business right at the end of 2023. And that was the first time that I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And it's very first world problem. You sell a business and now all of a sudden you're having some existential crisis. But it's tough when you're like a doer and a builder and a creator, and all of a sudden you're like looking out at the world going, what do I do now? Like, I had this thing that I did for all this time, and now, like you said, detaching your identity from what you do and who you are.
And it's not easy. It's
not easy.
It's a daily practice.
Yeah.
It's not something, I figured that out, next, check that box, and it doesn't work that way. It's just like being clean or dirty, fat or skinny. Like, it's a daily practice, dude. Whatever you do consistently is going to be the outcome. So reminding yourself that, I am also independent of what I do is important.
Yeah, and it's when those bad days come, I just, this idea, I'm working this idea through my head because and through my own experience, because when you have those moments where maybe business isn't going well, but you can, like you said, spend, not that your business isn't going well, but maybe take someone whose business isn't going well, the currency associated with that part of their life isn't what they want it to be, but they're spending more time with their kids, or they're able to be the coach, or whatever is important to them there, or time with a spouse, partner. That balancing and perspective and awareness, and that seems to me like how you get through it. Because otherwise, you just marinate in the bad shit that's happening in your business, and all of a sudden you find yourself on a habit train that's never going to get you back to where you want to be.
Or just, the perpetual lack of fulfillment.
Yeah.
You're always trying to fill a cup that never really mattered if it was full or not. Oh, what a fucking useless waste of time that would be.
Nah. So, dude, talk to me. How did you get to where you are as an entrepreneur today? You got multiple businesses. You still use some consulting. Obviously, Dugout Mugs is blown up all over the place. I mean, anybody who's even touched baseball and sports, even beyond that, has seen these things, wants them, et cetera. Talk to us about that journey, because I know this isn't certainly your first business. So how did you get to this place? Like, how did you become the entrepreneur that you are today?
Well, it starts all the way back at Gold's Gym, actually. That's where the whole journey started, and I was able to kind of learn people, and the core of everything I do, and all the projects I've been involved in, the wins, the losses, everything, it all comes down to people, right? Even in a world that's so digital and technical, it really comes down to people, and that's where I really learned people and people skills. Now, my stepfather was a town barber, my dad was a car salesman, my mom was a solo entrepreneur before it was cool. So I've been around very outgoing people my whole life, and that's a true blessing. And I actually think that's where the kids are falling off right now, is the lack of interpersonal skills, right? But that's a whole other conversation. But I think that was where it started for me, was Gold's Gym. And, I leveraged this new website that came out called Facebook, and how to talk one to many and get people to drive into the club. And I was putting up record numbers for the state. We were winning awards for the Southeastern United States for the best club. I was top sales 18 months in a row. I mean, there's no more room on my wall for awards, right? And that's when I really figured out that I had a knack for connecting with people and sales and communicating, right? Like, really just communicating. And a guy came up to me. His name was Brian. I'll always remember him. I was standing at the front desk, and he said, "The owner's never going to step aside and let you have this place. You've gone as far as you can go." And I was like, "Oh, that's a good point." And I put in my 2 weeks. And it happened to be April Fool's Day, which was hilarious. And they're like, "Oh, ha, ha." I'm like, "No, I'm serious. I'm out. And so then I went into real estate in 2008, right when everything was crashing. But I was flipping short sales with a buddy of mine, Mike. And that's when it really kind of ramped up. I realized that I could go from knowing nothing about real estate to being a national influencer in a matter of 6 months. It shouldn't be like that. But what I learned in that time is that if my plan's better than their plan, they're going with my plan. And this is something that is carried on into several other companies, and I can explain it in a little bit. But being a true visionary, can you see something so vividly, so clearly that everybody else around you can see it as well? And if they can, now you're at a point where you can, and I love to say this and people laugh, give direction, not directions. And you paint this picture so clearly that they see it, feel it, taste it, hear it, and then you can just back away. And the micromanagement is not necessary. And what you'll find is that people really flourish in an environment like that, especially the newer age employees and the younger kids and the generations coming up. The micromanagement's not cool, right? They're not feeling that as much. But if you can be this legendary visionary and have them see your vision, they can walk towards it, usually without your involvement, because I'm a huge fan of outsource, delegate, automate, replicate, right? And just get the hell out of the way. Like I do not want to be in the way. I want to do what I do best and then outsource the rest of it and, keep that train going. So anyway, back to the real estate side of it, I started to realize that I could see these visions, and I had national guys on TV were hiring me to do online what I was doing for myself without all the credibility and recognition, right? So anyway, that's when I launched my consulting company. I had probably $50,000-$60,000 a month I was bringing in, just telling people what to do, and it was beautiful. I loved it. And then all the technology, right? The Facebook and the Instagram, and way back when it was called realestateinvestor.com and MySpace, and way back. And what I identified is that these platforms gave you an opportunity to speak one to many, but in a very interpersonal, personal style conversation, and which was my forte. So then it was like, okay, so I just communicate and connect and whatever. And I started getting these big pages, the biggest page in the world for Tim Tebow or Duck Dynasty or Andrew Luck or any of these, all I did was created a fan page for these people. But because I understood how to communicate with people better than they did on their own, my pages grew bigger, faster, stronger. And then I was like, oh, so now I control 7 million fans I had at one point. And it's like, so what do you guys want to buy? And they started telling me. I was like, okay. So I go over to the resources. I'm like, hey, I'm sourcing this. And then I got into the print-on-demand T-shirt world back in like 2013, something like that. There was a brand that came out. It's called Teespring. I'll give them a shout out, even though they screwed me over. But I got on Teespring, and we ended up doing like $20 million in sales.
Wow.
Of print-on-demand T-shirts. No inventory, no nothing. Using OPM, other people's money to pay for it all. It was kind of dreamy. And then I got into physical products, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And we made a bunch of money, and then I lost money. I was in the cannabis space. I was in a restaurant. I was anywhere I could literally burn money into ashes. That's what I got involved in. And and if we're talking about actual application of thoughts, like from an investment standpoint, now one of my first check boxes is, can I impact this deal positively using my skill set or my network? If not, I don't invest, right? And that has served me pretty well, and I've stopped burning money to death. And one thing led to another, and I got sick in 2015, and I came out the other side of that with a completely different mindset. And we could dig into that later if you want to, but then I came out, for the sake of time, I'm going to shorten it. And I came out of that, and I met a guy named Randall who invented a baseball bat mug, right? And to me, this was the same as a T-shirt. It was a blank canvas that I could put something on. And I told Randall, he was like, oh, I need you to invest. I'm like, I got no money. I burned it all, basically. I just got done being sick and almost dead. Like, I can't do that. But what I can do is I could take this thing for a ride. So if you want to quit your job, call me back, and we'll partner up and, chop the company. And we took it from 60 or 70,000 in sales to we're over 55 million now selling bat mugs, right? So that's a sped up version of 15 years, but that's kind of how we got here.
I want to dig into this idea of so you said something that I found very intriguing. One of the ways that you started to leverage an audience and build an audience and a distribution mechanism was by creating fan pages for companies that weren't paying you. Is that the idea? So you would pick a celebrity, influencer, brand, etc., create a fan page for it, grow an audience, and then dig into that audience for products that they could potentially want associated with that you could create. Is that the blocking
kind of, yeah.
tackling?
So what I looked at is it's I call it data harvesting, right? What if I put something out there for, let's say, Duck Dynasty, because that's the picture on my wall over here, a picture, a gift I got from them. So it's like if I put that out there, who is the demographic, right? I always try to dig a few layers deeper. Who's going to follow that page? We know the demographic that's going to follow that page. More likely Christian, more likely older, more likely certain interests and things like that. So what I did is I would post with purpose. I would post things that would gauge or where I could gauge interest. Everything was a test for me. If I posted a certain design with a verse on it from the Bible, and people really resonated with that, I was like, immediately, hey, what do y'all think if I put this on a shirt? It was this A/B testing instant, right? Because you're using social media, and the fans for like sports are way more predictable. They're only buying when their team's winning for the most part. We know the type of stuff they're going to get, and it's really just aggregating all this data, right? Because I don't look sophisticated, but I'm a data guy. I really lean into data as much as I can, and you got to trust it, right? So that's what we did a lot of with these pages. We tried to understand who's following, why they're following, what they're following for, and then what I did is kind of a 2.0 of that. I use gamification a lot, and you familiar with gamification?
Yes.
Yeah, so I loved it, right? Even something as simple as you post 2 pictures, and now with AI, oh my God, like what a dream that would have been back then, where I could take a picture and say, hey, I come up with 5 differences in this picture and duplicate the picture here. That post, you put it out there and say, see the first person to guess all 5. Well, all we're doing was manipulating the algorithm, right? So all this engagement, people staying on the picture, zooming in and out, commenting, man, and it would just manipulate the algorithm to a point where every time we would post, every time we do anything, there's so much engagement that the organic sales and traffic were just through the roof. And then we did games where the first person to comment 5 times in a row wins something. Well, then there's people commenting 10 times a second, right? And it's just, with 40, 50,000 comments, what does that do to the algorithm of Facebook or Instagram, right? It was amazing. So I started again because I felt like I understood people and why they were there, what they were there for, and God forbid they win, I got to give them something worth like 10 or 20 bucks.
Yeah.
Right. But what did I get in return, from a growth standpoint? And then, so that's kind of what we did with the pages. But ultimately, I always post with purpose because I'm not here to the vanity metrics are useless. Oh, I have 10 million followers. It's like, dude, how much money did those 10 million people make you? Right. That's a real number. Right. And from a business standpoint, when you're looking at bottom line, vanity metrics aren't on the spreadsheet,
Where did this idea come from? Like, how did you like this fan page business? Because again, and I'm not interested just in the fan page side. I know a lot of people, like so many people today, so many owners. This is where they get stuck, dude. Like the stuff that you're describing, the second level stuff that you're describing, not the tactics of the page, but the stuff that I'm really interested in is this idea of thinking through, like your Duck Dynasty example, right? Developing a fan page for Duck Dynasty because you understand the demographics associated with that brand and know then you can find ways to add value and ultimately extract it as a business. Like that's a second level thinking where most people stop at, I need to find something I like and create a faceless fan page because I was told that they make $5,000 a month from wherever, right? Like they get caught in the surface. Yeah. What are some of these second level ideas like data harvesting, like trying to gamify things that you found work over and over and over again or continue to work today?
Gamification and reverse engineering, right? Like, so number one, something you just said, people think, well, stop, because that does not matter. What you think is so irrelevant. Like, it doesn't matter at all. You can have an idea, but that's it. And then you put it out there and you get real world feedback. You know, Mr. Wonderful, take the dog out back and shoot it, right? Take it behind the barn, man, sometimes. But like, you gotta rely on feedback. And actually, that's what happened with Randall. When he gave me the mug, I was like, that's kind of goofy, I think. But he's like, carried it around for a week. It took me like 3 days. I carried it around. I was like, all right, dude, you're right. I was wrong. Let's go. Right? And thank God I wasn't chock full of ego at this time, where I was like, no, that's stupid and I know everything, right? And walked away. I would have missed out on a tremendous opportunity. So gamification, and I feel like gamification for interaction is always going to be relevant. And I think it comes down to a couple of things. It's the average person's mentality when they're scrolling through social media. They're sheep, right? And I hate to be so blunt about it, but it's what it is. They're sheep. They have an attention span of a housefly, right? It's like, you got 4 seconds. If you made them laugh, and even in the post, if it says share, if you laughed, like, they're that basic. They're like, oh, I laughed, share, right? And it just starts going viral. And then, but all pages are different, so you have to try different things. All audiences are different. You have to try different things. And once you find something that works, you do more of that thing. It's not rocket science, right? And then the reverse engineering piece of it is kind of start with the end in mind, right? I know that's obvious, but that's important. You know, what is the metric you're measuring by here? Like, what do you consider a success? And then what does that look like here's the end? Well, then if I need success, I need 10 people to buy something. And if 10% of people engage, then I need to get 100, right? Like, and just kind of back it out. And then, and it kind of at least helps you put the rails in place, you know, the infrastructure a little bit.
This stuff takes a lot of discipline, right? Because what happens is
Anything
get busy,
worth doing does.
Yeah, you just throw up, I got to be active today, so I throw some nonsense post up. And I've been guilty at this probably times too in what I do. And you get it up there and you get that little dopamine hit of, oh, I was active today. I put something on my page. Nothing happens. You get one comment, nothing. You know what I mean? And then you just rinse and repeat the next day. So I completely agree. Everything worth doing takes discipline. But when you're running multiple organizations, or you're trying to run multiple pages, or you're doing, like, how do you personally stay committed to these things? Like, is it just having a North Star? Do you have a system? Do you have a process? Like, you have a lot of things going on, right? You're responsible for different decisions in your business, as much as you say you outsource, automate, et cetera. How do you stay disciplined through these decisions to make sure that you're not just being active for active sake, and you're actually continuing to do the things that push the ball up the mountain?
Well, if you take a look at my business pages right now, you will see that they are not being attended to. And that comes down to the fact of the hierarchy of importance. It's not important for me to be doing that right now. It's more important for me to be fixing the gears within my company with things like tariffs, with things like labor, with things like cost of goods increase, with the things like the economy doing weird stuff, right? Like, so in fact, I'm living that. You will see that it is not the most important thing I need to be focusing on, so I don't do it. Right now, would things work better if I did? Sure. Right? But when I only have so much time in a day, and in my world, money's not always the North Star, right? I dropped my kids off at school this morning. They started back, right? I'm going to pick them up from school today, right? Like, so there's other things that are more important to me. And if it's that or post on social media, well, social's just going to be crickets for a bit, right? Now, on my personal stuff, which is more private, it's consistent. I'm consistent on there because that's where I share my world with my very close circle. And until I can do it better on social, or put somebody in place to do it better on social the way I would want it done, we're just going to let it idle, But yeah, I mean, how do you stay dead? And then I see now, if you go back to when I had pages, that was my business, right? Like that was the point. So we had meetings, and I think digitally, and this is something for the listeners too, is like digital. You know, the whole world went digital, and people treated it as like a side hustle or just a digital thing. We had meetings. We had designer meetings. We have creative meetings. We had ad meetings, you know, for ad spend and things like that. You have to treat it like a business. If you don't have the discipline to work from home, I've been working from home for over 10 years, way before it was cool, right? I had the discipline to do that. A lot of people don't. And you have to understand that. And that comes down to self-reflection. If you can't do something the right way, you know, that's not the way you need to do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a lot of answers to the question, but
no, I think it's good stuff, man. I mean, I think your point on the hierarchy of importance, I'd like to dig into, because one, I think this idea of a hierarchy of importance is important, because what hierarchy of importance is important. You can tell my brain to mouth is working really well today. So because this is essentially, right, strategy, which is prioritization. And what, you know, I think a lot of people look at you and from your business from the outside and say, well, shit, he's got a physical product company. He's selling these mugs. You know, he's got to be active on social. He's got to be driving new leads. He's got to be driving new traffic, you know, and they would get caught up in, okay. So if someone's listening to this and they're kind of latched onto this idea of a hierarchy of importance, not necessarily your hierarchy, but how do they think through the things in their business to understand how to create it for themselves, right? I think people get lost in this. They get lost in what they feel like they should do versus what they actually need to be doing, and don't necessarily have a plan for figuring out what that is, as crazy as it might sound.
Yeah, and then the whole plan is just, we're going to try to make more money than we spend.
Yes.
And that's not scalable. It's doable, it's not scalable, and it's not fun. I would say, you know, reflection, man. It's reflection. And I know what I'm not good at. I know what I'm really good at, and I know what I'm not good at. I know what I like, and I know what I don't like. And you got to be really clear about this. I mean, I'm a 290-pound guy. Why am I not out there jumping hurdles? Probably because I'm not going to get over it, right? Like, maybe I shouldn't be running hurdles. And that's what a lot of people do. Like, I've seen some of the worst sales pitches on earth coming out of some founder's mouth. I'm like, dude, you don't need to talk to people in public. Like, you're horrible at it. You did yourself a disservice just now. So like, my point is like, if you're not good at sales, don't sell. If you're not good at public speaking, get the hell off the stage. You know, find somebody who, you know, is the puzzle pieces, you know. And now there's times I'm not foolish. I realize that at the beginning of a business, you wear all the hats. You're the janitor, you're the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, and the salesman. But it has to be very short-lived, in my opinion. You have to be very clear on what you stand for, what you don't stand for, what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you like, what you hate. I hate numbers. I hate the bean counting, right? Like, I want to be the visionary. I want to be involved in the sales, the marketing, the promote. Put me on TV. You know, I'll fly up into New York and be on Fox and Friends. Put me on, World News Tonight, right? Like, that's where I belong, front man. And I haven't been to the warehouse in like weeks, right? I was hanging out with the kids in Bahamas and all over the place. Weeks. I don't belong there. I'm not good there. I just get in the damn way. So I think, on a smaller scale, when people are getting started, you still have to understand these things about yourself and try to avoid those lanes as best you can.
Yeah, we talk about it in my company. We talk about it as zone of genius. And the company that I'm currently running, I started actually as an angel and board member. And these guys were great technical founders, very, very nerdy, smart, top of their industry, top of what they do. As much as I love them to death, couldn't sell their way out of a box. And And, what ended up happening was, to this conversation of Zone of Genius, I'm raising capital, business development, visionary. They are ones and zeros, dotted I's, crossed T's guys. And, we had a very long conversation around, look, like, the operations of the business are a mess. The product itself is fucking amazing, but the product is never going to get in the hands of your customers if if operationally there's no pipes connected. You know what I mean? Like this is a problem. And when we move them out of operational leadership over into the technical side, where now all they had to do every day was wake up and operate in their zone of genius. And I stepped in and took over an operational role as the president, running day to day. Now all of a sudden, the last 3 months, we've seen this massive uptick. To your point, it took, and I give them incredible props. Very proud of them for making the decision to say, it's a tough decision to say, like, I'm going to step out of operations as the founder, the person who came up with the idea for the company in the first place, to step aside. But it's just aligning. They had the self-awareness to know this is not what I'm good at. Like, I don't see the deals. I don't see the connections. I don't see how to get from this point, but I can make the ones and zeros do shit that no one else can do.
Right.
And,
know what you're good at.
And like, I think for a lot of people out there, these are conversations we have to have. We can't avoid these conversations. What ends up happening that I see in a lot of dysfunctional companies, and I'm interested in your take too, is like, everybody sees a move like this, but no one actually talks about it. No one is willing to bring up this topic of, I know, founder, CEO, COO, whatever, you're very good at this one thing or this technical skill. You're destroying our sales process because you don't have a clue. Like, let's talk about how we take that off your hands. And without that, like, your reflection and self-awareness, man, this is how you crash in the side of a mountain. You could have the most amazing product. You crash in the side of a mountain because, as you said, people aren't reflecting and they're not self-aware of what their zone of genius is.
Yeah. Well, and I can't tell you how many different levels of ego I've run into over the years. The whole, your ego's not your amigo. I love when I heard that, but that's the truth. That's I was a victim of that too. And life got shook up a little bit. And the older you get, the smarter you get. It's funny how that works. Mm-hmm. And, what does this say? Do you want to be right or do you want to be rich?
Yep.
I choose rich. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
being
our
right
internal mantra is it's not about getting it right. It's not about being right. It's about getting it right. That's it.
Yeah.
We don't know egos. It doesn't matter who finds the solution.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help.
You need to be able to marry, and I'm interested how you do this. Like, I do find you have to have some sort of ego / ambition to create something and to make it bigger, right? Like that drive has to be there, but that has to be for the growth and ambition of the company, not your personal ego. And I find it's very hard for people to detach the ego associated with ambition, drive, pushing forward, growing the business with their specific expertise, credit, etc. associated with that growth. That feels like a very hard thing to disconnect. Was it your health scare? Was it, what allowed you to start, because you said you had ego issues earlier in your career, like what allowed you to detach from that and continue to push forward and be that driven visionary leader while removing embracing the humility that it takes to actually move a company forward?
When you lose everything or almost everything, it kind of puts it in check. I remember a long time ago, my password on my computer was "the kid can't miss." What an asshole, right? So like that was my belief. Now I've never had an issue with confidence, and confidence and arrogance will walk really close together. So I think when I started understanding, reorganizing my, priorities and what was important and what was not important, right? Like impressing other people I could give two shits, man. Like I really don't care. And being somebody that my kids grow up and be proud their dad, that matters. And I think, just that times 50, like in all these different areas. And then also, understanding now where, some of the guys in my organization are young. I realize the impact that I'm going to have on the world by helping other people succeed and excel is awesome. And again, it's a different mentality. Before, it's, I'm going to be judged by how well I did. And now I'm going to be judged by how many people I helped along the way. And because of that, it's allowed me to build a pretty astounding network, because I do so authentically. You know who you're getting. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't. Either way, I'm fine. But I operate that way now versus what's in it for me every time, all the time. Because it doesn't serve you really long term, man. And yeah, the health scare with in 2015, that certainly put things in check. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dugout Mugs doing 55 million. Happy with that? Growing it? Like, what are your plans? How do you continue to leverage? I mean, you've the celebrities, the athletes, the individuals who've had custom mugs done. I mean, I see pictures of them shared all over the place. You talked about being on all these different shows, and like, is there a next phase? Like, do you want to take this to a whole nother level? Are you at a place where it's like growth can happen organically? Where are you with the business, and what's the next steps for you?
Well, it's a little over 55 million since 2017 when we started.
Yep.
Right, and we doubled year over year, every year, and then we peaked a few years ago, and then started coming back down, and for multiple reasons. But we were Inc. 5000 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. But a friend of mine, Jason, mentioned something, and it always stuck with me because it was simple but powerful. And it's not what it makes you; it's what it costs you. And when you really look at this, like right now, I'm at a place where if the company only does 5 million, 7 million, 8 million, 10 million, it's sub 10. I think sub 10, and then we just focus on, like, I'm happy. Like, I just blew the whole summer with my kids. We were everywhere, going everywhere, doing everything, 4-hour train rides in different states and cruises to the Bahamas, whatever we want, right? And nothing really, they didn't need me for anything. Like, if I can work for 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, and all my bills are paid, I live in a big, nice house, great neighborhood, tons of friends, I'm going to, celebrity events and baseball games and World Series and Stanley Cups, and like, how I measure success now is different. I don't need to be tens of millions of dollars stacked up all over me, If it happens, great, but that's not the number one priority. It really, really isn't. I want to have all that I need. I don't need all that I want. Right? I don't need that. That's the ego. So that's the vanity side of it, in my opinion. And some people get caught up in that, and maybe that's their journey. I don't know. But for me, with Dugout and the growth of Dugout, some international distribution, we're playing with that. There's a couple companies, some product companies that are, there's a lot of synergy, so maybe rolling up some of that stuff. Currently I own 92% of the company, so that's a great number, and I can make a lot of unique decisions. I own a golf company as well, Big Golf, and I recently brought that into the warehouse because of the equipment we own. You could print on the golf balls, so corporate gifting golf balls, right? And again, like, I'm just trying to find other things that have synergy that fit our model, and it fits our vibe, and that kind of stuff. There's a couple really cool companies and products out there that make a lot of sense. So probably pulling those under the umbrella. Continuing to be extremely present for my kids while they're young, 2 kids under 10. That's more important than anything we're doing here. Like, and anybody that thinks otherwise, best of luck with that. But I understand, for me, that's super important. It's self-development, reading more. I know this isn't really the answer to your question, but it is too, So Dugout, as long as it continues to serve me and grow and take care of the people that are making it run, it's doing what it's supposed to do. And if somebody shows up and wants it more than I do, we'll have that conversation.
I think it's a perfect answer because it goes all the way back to how we started talking about the currency that's important to you in your life. And what you just described was your breakdown of, at this moment in your life, the currencies are that are most important. It's your relationships, it's your standard of life, the experiences you'll be able to share with your family, etc. And I think that that's a wonderful perspective because so many of the shows that especially younger kids listen to and these influencers they listen to, push, grow, grow, grow. If you're not standing next to the Lamborghini or the Ferrari or the Porsche or whatever bullshit they're looking at, it's this constant state of, and you talked about it, like a lack of fulfillment. Like no matter how much they have, right, there's this sense of being unfulfilled. And what I hear from you, not just in the words that you're saying, but literally the tone of your voice, your body language, the way you're speaking, is a sense of understanding what creates fulfillment of your life and a reorientation towards that. And I agree. I mean, I made it very clear when I took over the president position of Lincora that my kids are my number one priority. I'm in the golden years too. I got 11 and 9-year-old boys. They both play baseball. I coach both of them. They play other sports, right? Like going to their games, being present for them, picking them up from school. My wife and I are divorced, ex-wife. So, the days that I have them, I want to be there. I don't want to be missing those days, etc. So like, this part of this time period is so important because they're going to hit 13, 14 years old. And no matter how good a parent you are, they're going to have their own life, right? And when you invite them to do things, they're going to be like, well, Dad, Johnny and Tommy are doing this, or Sally, whatever. I don't know if you got boys or girls, but like they're going to have these things that they want to go do that aren't necessarily just go hang out with dad and mom. And I think it's very unfortunate when you hear people who miss those years and they look back and they're like, I wish I had spent this time, or I wish I had been more present, or I would have loved to have coached, but my job wouldn't let me, I couldn't. And it's like, it's not your job that stopped you from doing those things. You know what I mean? You chose the job or stayed at the job that kept you from doing those things. And it's why I just love this idea of understanding the currencies that deliver the most value to you. I'm going to dig in and reflect on that a little more. It's incredibly powerful. So,
because they operate in if you think of just the word currency, right? And I mentioned this in other chats, but currency, it's a current. It just flows, right? And it's never yours. You just have a turn with it. Money, same way. It's never yours. You just have a turn with it. It's just a current. And all these currencies flow simultaneously. Every day you have time. Every day you have experiences. Every day you have money. Every day you have fulfillment. Every day you can choose happiness. Like all these are all currencies, right? You can't go into a store and buy shit with happiness. Okay, I get that, but these things are all flowing at the same time. And
Chris, you buy peace of mind with that. So to your
what's
point,
you're buying, right?
Yes, that is such a crucial point that you just made there. And I apologize for interrupting, but I want to make sure the audience caught it. Was that you can buy the house or the second house or go on the vacation with money. You can buy that with that currency, but you can't buy peace of mind with money. You're not getting peace of mind with money.
Well, now, and relationship capital is extremely valuable when you truly care to connect with other people and bring them value in a way that what's valuable to them. And real, I see these networking events and you show up and you just talk and wait for your turn you're listening with the intent to reply, not to shut the hell up and listen. Right. And a lot of times you'll realize that you can be extremely valuable to this person. They may be having a really hard time with their spouse and they needed somebody to talk. There's different values, right? It's not always monetary. And I think that's the reflection point. What other, if I took money away, what else is valuable that I have or that I need? Right. And then you can start to see these, think about the Matrix, right? You can start to see those types of things floating around you and you're like, oh, today sucked financially, but you know what? I could really pack this bank account full of time, or whatever it is.
So there's a lot of young in entrepreneurship individuals who listen to the show. And
Cool.
surprisingly, a lot of second career entrepreneurs, right? First half of their career was in the corporate world, got fed up for this or that reason. Maybe it's a quality of life, maybe it's more time with kids. And now they're either exploring or have just started entrepreneurship. That was actually a pretty key insight that we got out of a little survey we did about 6 months ago. So talking to that specific group, if they stand in front of you, whatever the business is, it is, right? And they kind of give you the open-ended question, like, hey, I'm just getting going. I need to take care of my family. Because this is the key issue that they find, right? They're not 22 coming in with zero expense, right? Or they can't couch surf or live in a cot in a fucking gym for 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, I love Hormozi's story, and the shit that he shares is great, and there's literally nothing against him. But the whole, like, go sleep in a cot in your business for 6 months thing doesn't really work for people who have a family or a kid, right? So, like,
Right.
so this group of individuals who wants to have the entrepreneurial life, has an idea, etc., but is dealing with the pressure of, I also have, like, a real life. I have a spouse that I need to work with to take care of the family, and I want to have a relationship with kids, etc. How does that particular individual, what can you tell them to kind of get them off the ground? Is there any, like, key insight that you have to help them? Or just, I know it's a very open-ended, so go wherever your mind takes you, but that person is struggling today, and there are a lot of them, and I'm very interested in where you would take them.
Yeah, my mind goes all over the place, right? Like, there's one of the things that popped into my head was, you don't lose until you quit. You can be losing, but you don't. So it's about outlasting the problems, right? Like, how stubborn are you? And realize you don't deserve this. You have to fucking go get it. Like, you don't just deserve it because you woke up and you think you do. Like, you still got to go get it, and if you're scared of work, or you want to bitch about it, or you're going to try something just long enough to complain and then quit, like, that's a problem, and it's going to be a perpetual problem. It doesn't just stop at the first one, right? So it's like, it's about commitment, but if you bring it all the way back, you have to start with, like, the why, right? Like, the reflection point. Why am I doing it? Because a lot of them, and I was guilty of this, and that's why I know, I'm doing it for my family. It sounds good, right? It's a great excuse to kick to your wife so you can just fuck off and do whatever you're doing. But the truth is, when I really started thinking, at the beginning of this summer, I just bought my partner out a year and a half ago. This is not the time for me to just check out for 90 days, dude. But you know what? I made a commitment that this summer was going to be that summer. We sat at our neighbor's house having a cocktail, and we were just laughing about it. We're like, dude, let's do it. This summer. This is the summer. And we went ham, right? It was a commitment. And that, and the pain, what do they say? Like when the pain of experiencing something becomes greater than the pain of fixing it, then you'll make the change. Or something along those lines. You get it. Figure it out.
Yep.
Look it up. Google, right? Yeah. But what it was is, like, what did it for me is I don't miss nothing, bro. And I, like, to the point where Fox asked me to come up to New York live up there at Fox and Friends and go live with the mugs. And I said, look, I got to dance with my daughter this afternoon. If I can get a red eye when I'm done dancing, I will be there in the morning. And I did, and it worked, and we crushed, right? But that, how many people would bail on that for that opportunity? A lot. I refused. I wouldn't do it. I said, if I can do this, that's going to happen. And that led me to 3 more times live on air and twice on World News Tonight. Over $1 million in revenue from that one decision. But I wasn't going to do it if I couldn't do the daddy-daughter dance. That was more important to me. And when you really reflect on that, like, what's more important to you? And not just say it because it sounds good, right? I think that's part of that preliminary setup and reflection.
Dude, that's like a dagger shot for me, because I made that mistake too. When my speaking career first took off, I thought I was the big swinging dick, and oh my God, here we go, and I'm getting all these inquiries, and
Yeah.
5 to 10 grand a pop, and I'm like, this is another level. You know, I grew up poor as shit, so all of a sudden,
Yeah.
this was like my
The
first
main
real.
metric is money, dude.
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
it.
I mean, this was the first real like ramp where I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, each one of these is a jump, making more money than I ever made before. And dude, I'm on the road, and this isn't even a lot for some speakers. I did 47 gigs in 1 year, with a 3 and a 1 year old at home, doing it for my family. That's what I would say. I'd come home and I'd be like, babe, I'm doing this for us. I'm doing this for, I take these checks. They're not even mine. I literally just hand them to you and you put them in the fucking bank account. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing this for you. And she's going, yeah, except like, I want you here. Like if you were doing it for me, you'd be here because that's where I want you, like with the family, not out on the road. Like, and it was just me. Dude, it just, when you said that, it was like, literally, I just lived that life. And I remember, like, her sitting me down one day and going, I know you love doing this, but if this shit doesn't change, we got a big, big problem. Yeah. And we did end up getting divorced later on for different reasons. We fixed that problem. I listened to her and dialed it back. But dude, I think this excuse of I'm doing it for my family, I'm doing it for my kids, this is such a whitewashing excuse for bad behavior, for bad habits, for a lack of discipline.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more, man.
Yeah. Well, and so after I bought my partner out of the company 18 months ago, that very first, it was Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And if you know anything about e-com, that's where it's happening, right? And I said, you know what? I got to stay back. I couldn't go to North Carolina with them for Thanksgiving. And I saw those pictures of them up there doing that, and I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Dude, that sucked. And so then when this summer came, it's like summer's like barren, and that's what I need to create and do and whatever. I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not doing it. I'm not going through that again. So it's a practice, right? Like these thoughts are a daily practice, like taking a shower to stay clean. Like you got it, and it's on my wall. I'm not gonna, and my computer's right here, but like it's on my wall there. It's over there. It's on my desktop. It's on my phone. Like I guarantee you, every time I turn my phone on, it's my little one. It's what it is. And it's a daily reminder. And I got fucking Post-it notes over here. Don't forget this. Don't forget that. Alexa's helping me out. So I think the if you take one thing away, it's start understanding where you want to end up and how you want to get there. And I feel like time and money and control, these are illusions. You can only control the things you can control. And I feel like the sooner you can get a grip on, because again, it's a practice, but you can get a grip on the direction you're going. Because some people, like you said, what if what you decided early was where you wanted to be, but your ass is running that way? Like you're just getting further and further and further away from it, and then you're past the point of no return. And it's like, well, this is what I've done for all. I've sold cars for 30 years. What am I going to do with myself now? It's like, bro, you wanted to be a teacher, and you knew that from the beginning, right? So I think the whole chase the happy, not the money. It's a great question. Write it down. I mean, like we're visual. We see, we hear, we think. Start touching on these senses, and understand who you are a little better. And then realize where that person wants to go, and also who needs to be in your life to get there. Because I outgrew a lot of people, man. Mm-hmm. Not because they were bad people, they just weren't right for me. Yeah. And that's real. That's real, because you end up spending your time with and your thoughts with, and you're in an echo chamber of just like dumbass comments about money doesn't grow on trees. It sure it does, right? Like we can manifest almost anything, and it's like, you get what I'm saying. Like you can't grow. I just did a post about this the other day on LinkedIn. I loved it. Being a millionaire, because I'm a millionaire, yay, right? Whatever. But it's like being a millionaire when I was a kid in my 20s, and for the kids in their 20s, you're still a kid. Trust me. I was there. I get it now, and reflecting back, you can see it a little more clearly. But when I was a kid, it was like, I want to be a millionaire, because then I can go where I want, do what I want, with who I want, whatever. But what the prize really was growing to be a person who could be a millionaire. And that realization was really cool. And I think I compared it to a balloon. When you blow up a balloon, as big as it can go, hold it for like 5 minutes and let it go. It'll never get as small as it once was because it's expanded. And that's how we are. That's how our brains are. That's how our once I know I can do $1 million in a day in sales, bro, I can never unknow that. Right? For someone to think they can make $10,000 in a month is so baffling that they can't even understand how that works because they're living on, peanuts. But it comes down to belief. Once you expand, you can never unexpand, right? Like you never shrink back to that person who had those small thoughts and those small actions and those small friends. And that's really been kind of the second or third stage of my life that I've been enjoying a great deal. And I try to get other people to get there sooner than later because it's really refreshing.
Kris, this has been phenomenal. I could go for another 3 hours. I have like a million more questions. You're a phenomenal entrepreneur. I got all these quotes in here that I love your insights. I love the way you frame things. People who want to get deeper into your world, not necessarily through Dugout Mugs, but just your thoughts, what you do. Is there a place where you capture any of these ideas that people can follow along? Where would you send them?
LinkedIn is probably the only public social media I have, man. Dugout, with the companies though, with Dugout Mugs and Big Golf, I mean, they are a reflection of who we are, how we think, what we do, how we operate, and if people want to see it in motion, that's where we are. That's what we do. We make cool stuff. We love on people. We got, Jesse Cole owns the Savannah Bananas, fantastic human. And I will always give him props because he's so good at what he does. And he's so good at who he is. And like, I follow him and try to learn on a daily basis because sometimes we get in a rut and seeing somebody else do something that we know is in our, are we in alignment? Like I'm very much in alignment with him and several others, right? But, Jesse, I just saw a video from him this morning. Just try to surround yourself by people or with people that you feel alignment with, right? And I spent some time on LinkedIn, but Dugout, that's us. That's who we are and what we do. There's no facade, right? But the consulting stuff, I still do that from time to time. It has to be a cool project. Again, when we talk about metrics, the check boxes: do I like you, right? Is this going to be fun or is it going to suck? Can I leverage my network to make this better? Can I play with my friends? Are you a good owner operator? Do you listen? Do you have an ego? Like, are you gonna? So it's cool. And then you find somebody that checks all these boxes. That's how I get into these companies.
Yeah,
it's because I put it together and 90 days in, 120. I don't go more than like 90 days anyway, because I fixed all the crap I can fix, and then send them on their way. But sometimes it's like, well, pretty cool little company. I'd have a lot of fun doing this. What do you think? Right? And then I get involved. That's how I got Dugout and Big Golf.
Yeah. I love it, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time with us. This has been phenomenal. Wish Dugout and everything you're doing nothing but success, my friend.
Putting good vibes out there, buddy. You bet.